Somewhere tonight there is a person sitting in a chair, staring at a wall, thinking about the life they were supposed to live. They are not lazy. They are not stupid. They are not without ability. They are simply sitting. And sitting, my friend, has never built anything. Sitting has never planted a field. Sitting has never raised a business. Sitting has never healed a nation. Thinking alone has never changed a single circumstance on this earth. I want you to hear me tonight, because what I am about to say may shake the very foundation of how you have been living your life. The greatest tragedy is not death. The greatest tragedy is a life full of ideas that never left the chair. It is a mind full of dreams that never touched the ground. It is a heart full of vision that never became a hand full of work. Let me tell you something about potential. Potential is a dangerous word because potential means what you could become but have not yet become. Potential means what is possible but is not yet real. You can be the most potential-filled person in your city, in your family, in your generation, and still die with nothing to show for it, because potential that is not released is potential that is wasted. The saddest place on this planet is not the hospital. It is not the prison. The saddest place on this planet is the graveyard, because buried in the graveyard are businesses that were never started, books that were never written, songs that were never sung, inventions that were never built, marriages that were never healed, and dreams that were never pursued. The graveyard is the richest place on earth, not because of gold, not because of silver, but because of unused potential, unspoken words, and undone work. I ask you tonight, are you going to be buried with your dreams still inside you? Are you going to let the seed of greatness that was planted in you when you were born rot in the ground because you refused to break through the soil? A seed that sits and thinks about becoming a tree will never become a tree. A seed must die to itself. It must push through resistance. It must break its own shell before it can ever become what it was created to be. You were not created to sit and admire your potential. You were created to release it. Thinking is not the enemy. Thinking is necessary. Every great achievement in history began as a thought in someone's mind. But thinking without action is like a car with a full tank of gas and no engine. It looks ready, it has everything it needs, but it will never move an inch, because thinking is fuel, not motion. You can fill your mind with 1,000 ideas. You can sit for hours imagining the life you want. You can visualize your success until you fall asleep. But if you never stand up, if you never take the first step, if you never put your hands to work, all of that thinking becomes nothing more than mental exercise. It becomes a workout for your imagination while your reality stays exactly the same. Somewhere there is a man who has been thinking about starting his business for 15 years. He has the plan in his head. He has run the numbers in his mind 100 times. He knows exactly what he would name it, exactly what he would sell, exactly how he would grow it. But 15 years later, he is still an employee, still waiting, still sitting, still thinking. And here is the tragedy. Someone else, with a fraction of his intelligence, with a fraction of his vision, took a fraction of the action. And today that person is living the life the thinker only imagined. Why? Because starting beats thinking every single time. I need you to understand something tonight. The world does not reward the smartest people. The world does not reward the most talented people. The world does not even reward the people with the best ideas. The world rewards the people who start. The world rewards the people who move. The world rewards the people who take their thinking and turn it into motion, even imperfect motion, even shaky motion, even motion filled with mistakes. A moving target can be corrected. A moving ship can be steered. But a ship that never leaves the harbor cannot be steered anywhere because it is not going anywhere at all. You were designed for movement, not for stillness. Look at your own body. You have hands, and hands are not designed to sit folded forever. Hands are designed to build, to write, to create, to work. You have legs, and legs are not designed to stay planted in one chair. Legs are designed to walk you toward your purpose. You have a mind, And your mind is not designed to be a museum where dreams are put on display and admired. Your mind is designed to be a factory where dreams are processed into plans and plans are processed into action. Everything about your design points toward motion. So when you choose to sit and only think, you are fighting against your own design. You are working against the very purpose for which you were created. Let me ask you a hard question tonight, and I want you to answer it honestly in your own heart. What have you been thinking about for the last year that you still have not started? What idea keeps returning to your mind while you are washing dishes, while you are driving, while you are lying in bed at night unable to sleep? That recurring thought is not random. That recurring thought is a knock on the door of your destiny. It keeps coming back because it is waiting for you to answer it with action. Ideas that are ignored eventually stop knocking. And when they stop knocking, they do not disappear. They simply move on to someone else who is ready to answer. I have seen it happen more times than I can count. A person has a vision, a powerful vision, a vision that could change their family, their community, their nation. But they sit on it, they polish it in their mind, they wait for the perfect time, the perfect resources, the perfect confidence. And while they wait, someone else, somewhere else, receives a similar vision, and that person, instead of waiting, starts. That person begins with nothing but willingness. And years later, the world celebrates the one who started, while the one who only thought is left wondering what could have been. Do not let this be your story. Do not let someone else build what was placed inside of you simply because they were willing to start while you were still thinking. Understand this tonight. Clarity does not come before action. Clarity comes from action. You do not have to see the whole staircase to take the first step. You only have to see the first step. So many people are waiting to feel completely ready before they begin, but readiness is a myth invented by fear to keep you sitting in the chair a little longer. You will never feel 100% ready. The athlete does not feel completely ready before the biggest game of the season, but they play anyway. The entrepreneur does not feel completely ready before opening the doors of the business, but they open anyway. The writer does not feel completely ready before publishing the book, but they publish anyway. Readiness is not a feeling you wait for. Readiness is a decision you make, and then the feeling catches up with the decision, sometimes days later, sometimes weeks later, sometimes only after you have already succeeded. Fear loves the chair. Fear does not fight you standing up. Fear simply keeps you comfortable sitting down. Fear does not need to defeat you in battle. Fear only needs to convince you that thinking is the same as doing, and once you believe that lie, fear has already won without lifting a single finger. Fear will tell you to research a little more, to plan a little more, to wait for a better sign, to wait until the children are older, to wait until you have more money, to wait until the economy improves, to wait until you feel stronger, to wait until next year. Fear is patient because fear knows that delay is the same as defeat. It does not need to stop you today. It only needs you to postpone until your dream quietly dies of old age. I want you to picture something with me. Picture two farmers standing at the edge of identical fields. Both farmers received the same seed. Both farmers have the same soil, the same rainfall, the same sunlight. One farmer sits under a tree and thinks deeply about the harvest he wants. He imagines the size of the crop. He calculates the profit. He pictures the celebration when the harvest comes in. The other farmer, without nearly as much thinking, walks into the field and begins to plant. Season after season passes. The farmer who sat and thought still has a field full of nothing but soil because thinking does not plant seeds, hands plant seeds. The farmer who started, even with mistakes, even with crooked rows, even with some seeds planted too deep and others too shallow, that farmer has a harvest because action, even imperfect action, produces results, while perfect thinking produces nothing but more thinking. There is something powerful that happens the moment you start. The moment you take the first step, doors begin to open that were completely invisible while you were sitting still. People begin to show up that you did not know existed. Resources begin to appear that you did not know were available. Opportunities begin to align that you could never have planned on paper. This is not magic. This is the law of motion meeting the law of provision. Provision follows movement. Help follows effort. The universe does not send resources to a person who is sitting and thinking, because a person who is sitting and thinking has not created a place for those resources to land. But the moment you start moving, you create momentum. And momentum has a way of attracting exactly what you need, exactly when you need it. I want to speak now to the person who says, I am waiting for a sign. I am waiting for God to speak clearly before I move. Hear me carefully. Sometimes the sign you are waiting for is not going to come as a voice from the sky. Sometimes the sign is the very desire that has been placed inside of you. The desire itself is the sign. The recurring thought itself is the sign. The fact that you cannot stop imagining this dream, no matter how many years pass, no matter how many distractions come, that persistence itself is your permission to begin. You are not waiting for permission from outside of you. The permission has already been given inside of you, and it has been waiting patiently for you to recognize it and act on it. Let me tell you about the danger of comfort. Comfort is the greatest enemy of your future, because comfort does not attack you, comfort soothes you. Comfort does not threaten your dream with violence. Comfort threatens your dream with peace, with ease, with the false sense that everything is fine exactly as it is. And because comfort feels good, most people never leave it, even when they know deep inside that they were made for more. I want to tell you tonight, if you are comfortable, you are not growing. If you are comfortable, you are not stretching. If you are comfortable, your potential is sitting exactly where it started, unused, undisturbed, and slowly dying from lack of exercise. Sitting and thinking is comfortable. Starting is uncomfortable. Starting means risk. Starting means the possibility of failure. Starting means people might watch you attempt something and see you stumble. Starting means you might invest your time, your money, your energy into something that does not work the first time. But let me tell you something that took me years to understand. Failure is not the opposite of success. Failure is a required ingredient of success. Every person who has ever built anything meaningful on this earth has a long list of failures behind them, longer than their list of successes. They simply refused to let the failures be the final chapter. They got up, they adjusted, they started again. The difference between a person who succeeds and a person who never even attempts is not the absence of failure, it is the presence of another attempt. So many people are afraid to start because they are afraid of what people will say. They are afraid of being laughed at, judged, criticized, misunderstood. But understand this. The people who are laughing at you for starting are usually the very same people who are still sitting and thinking about doing something themselves. Do not let people who have never started tell you how to finish. Do not let people who are still sitting in the chair criticize you for standing up and walking. Their opinion has no authority over your destiny because they have not paid the price of movement. They have only paid the price of comfort. I want you to consider the word procrastination for a moment. Procrastination is not simply delay. Procrastination is theft. It steals your time. It steals your opportunity. It steals the version of your future that was waiting to be built today. Every day you postpone your dream, you are not simply losing a day. You are losing the compound effect of everything that day could have produced. One day of action might seem small, but one day of action repeated for a year becomes a completely different life. And one day of sitting and thinking repeated for a year becomes exactly the same life you are living right now, only 1 year older, with 1 year less time to build what you were created to build. Time is the one resource you cannot get back. Money can be earned again. Relationships, in many cases, can be repaired. Opportunities, though they may look different, often return in new forms. But time, once it is spent, is gone forever. You cannot ask for a refund on the years you spent sitting and thinking instead of starting and working. This is why urgency matters. This is why today matters. Not tomorrow, not next month, not next year, not when things settle down, not when you feel ready, but today. Because today is the only day that is actually in your hands. Let me talk to you about small beginnings, because so many people despise the idea of starting small. They want to start big or not start at all. They want the grand opening, the huge launch, the perfect version. And because they cannot have that immediately, they choose to have nothing instead. But I want you to understand something profound. Every massive tree you have ever seen began as a small seed buried in the dark, unseen, unnoticed, unimpressive. No one stood over that seed and applauded. No one filmed the seed and admired how powerful it looked. But that seed did not wait to look impressive before it began growing. It simply began in the dark, in silence, without an audience, and years later, that same seed became a tree so large that people rest in its shade and forget it ever started as something small and unnoticed. Do not despise your small beginning. Do not wait until you can start big, because big starts do not exist. Only big results exist. And big results are built from a long chain of small starts that most people never see. The business that looks like an overnight success took years of unseen effort. The athlete who looks unstoppable spent thousands of hours in an empty gym where no one was watching. The speaker who moves an entire stadium once stood in front of a mirror alone, rehearsing words that no one else believed in yet. Every visible success has an invisible beginning, and that invisible beginning always looks small, uncertain, and unimpressive. Start small, start now, and let time do what only time can do, which is turn small, consistent action into massive, undeniable results. I want to address something that keeps so many people trapped in the chair, and that is the fear of being wrong. People are so afraid that their idea is not the right one, that their timing is not perfect, that their plan is not fully developed, that they choose to do nothing at all rather than risk doing the wrong thing. But hear me tonight. Doing something imperfectly will always teach you more than doing nothing perfectly. Action gives you information that thinking never can. You can sit and imagine 10,000 outcomes in your mind, but the moment you actually start, you receive real feedback, real data, real experience, and that experience becomes the foundation for your next, wiser, more informed action. Thinking gives you theories. Starting gives you truth. There is a kind of person who has convinced themselves that they are still preparing. They call it research. They call it studying. They call it getting ready. And preparation is valuable. Do not misunderstand me. But there is a point where preparation becomes a disguise for fear. There is a point where studying becomes an excuse for never doing. If you have been preparing for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and you still have not started, I need to tell you the truth in love. You are not preparing anymore. You are hiding. You are hiding behind the appearance of productivity while avoiding the actual risk of beginning. Real preparation has an expiration date. Real preparation eventually gives way to real action. If your preparation never ends, it was never preparation, it was procrastination wearing a disguise. I want you to picture your dream as a locked door. Thinking is standing in front of that door, staring at it, admiring its shape, imagining what might be on the other side. But only action turns the handle. Only action pushes the door open. You can spend your entire life standing in front of a beautiful locked door, describing to everyone around you exactly what you believe is behind it. But until you reach out and turn the handle, until you push forward with your own hands, that door remains closed. And everything you imagined remains only imagination. The world is full of brilliant minds standing in front of closed doors, describing rooms they have never actually entered because they never did the one thing required to enter, which is to move. Let me speak now about discipline, because starting is one thing, but continuing is another. So many people manage to start filled with excitement, filled with energy, and then within a few weeks, the excitement fades, and they return right back to the chair, right back to sitting, right back to thinking about what they used to be doing. Discipline is what carries you past the point where motivation runs out. Motivation is a spark. Discipline is the fire that keeps burning long after the spark is gone. You cannot rely on feeling excited every single day to keep working, because some days you will not feel like it at all. And on those days, discipline has to speak louder than feeling. Discipline says, I will show up whether I feel like it or not, because my commitment is not based on my emotions, it is based on my decision. I want to remind you tonight that consistency beats intensity. A person who works steadily every single day, even in small amounts, will outperform a person who works intensely for 1 week and then disappears for a month. The tortoise did not win the race because it was faster than the hare. The tortoise won because it never stopped moving, while the hare, confident in its ability, chose to rest, chose to sit, chose to assume the race was already won. Do not be the hare who sits down halfway through the journey because you believe your talent alone will carry you across the finish line. Talent without consistent work is simply unused potential dressed up in confidence. I want to talk directly to the dreamer who has 100 ideas but has finished none of them. Having many ideas is not the problem. Jumping from idea to idea without ever finishing one is the problem. You do not need 100 unfinished projects. You need one project finished. Focus is a form of respect you show to your own potential. When you scatter your energy across too many directions, you dilute the very power that could have made any single one of those ideas successful. Choose one. Commit to one. Finish one. And then if you want, move to the next. But stop collecting unfinished beginnings as if they are trophies, because unfinished beginnings are not achievements. They are graveyards of potential, just smaller versions of the same graveyard I spoke about earlier. I want you to understand the difference between busy and productive. Sitting and thinking can sometimes disguise itself as being busy. You can be busy planning, busy organizing your thoughts, busy talking about your dream to everyone who will listen, busy rearranging your notes, busy redesigning your vision board, and still not have moved one single step closer to your goal. Busy is motion without direction. Productive is motion with purpose. Do not confuse the two. Ask yourself honestly at the end of each day, did I actually move my dream forward today? Or did I simply feel like I was moving because I was tired at the end of it? Exhaustion is not proof of progress. Results are proof of progress. Let me speak to the person who feels like it is too late. You look around and you see people younger than you who have already achieved what you are still dreaming about, and you feel a heaviness in your chest, a sense that your window has closed. I want to tell you tonight, comparison is a thief, and it will rob you of the only thing you actually have control over, which is today. It does not matter what age someone else started at. It does not matter how far ahead someone else appears to be. The only race that matters is the race between who you are today and who you could become tomorrow if you simply started. It is never too late to start. It is only too late to start once you have stopped breathing. As long as you are alive, the door of beginning is still open to you. I want to tell you about the moment everything changes, and it is not a mysterious moment. It is a simple moment. It is the moment you stand up. It is the moment you stop rehearsing the plan in your mind and you take the first physical action toward it. It might be making a phone call. It might be writing the first paragraph. It might be saving the first small amount of money. It might be asking the first question. It might be showing up to the first place you have been too afraid to show up to. Whatever it is, that first action is the hinge upon which your entire future swings. Everything before that action is only potential. Everything after that action becomes reality. I want you to leave here tonight with a decision, not a feeling, a decision. Feelings change with the weather. Feelings change with your mood. Feelings change with how much sleep you got last night. But a decision, a real decision, made deep in your spirit does not depend on how you feel. Decide tonight that you are done sitting. Decide tonight that you are done merely thinking. Decide tonight that whatever has been sitting inside of you, waiting, incubating, developing, is now going to be released into the world through your hands through your effort, through your action. You were not created to be a warehouse of unused ideas. You were created to be a river. And a river that stops flowing is no longer a river. It becomes a swamp. Do not let your life become stagnant water simply because you refuse to move. I want to close with this thought, and I want you to carry it with you long after this message has ended. The world is not waiting for another brilliant idea. The world already has enough brilliant ideas sitting in enough brilliant minds to solve almost every problem we face. What the world is actually waiting for is brilliant action. The world is waiting for the person who takes the idea that everyone else was too afraid to touch and simply begins. It does not have to be perfect. It does not have to be big. It does not have to be fully funded, fully planned, fully understood. It only has to begin, because everything that has ever existed in this world, every invention, every movement, every business, every ministry, every masterpiece, started exactly where you are right now, as a thought in someone's mind who finally decided that thinking was no longer enough. I want to speak now about the voice inside of you that keeps whispering, "Not yet." That voice is very convincing because it does not sound like an enemy. It sounds like wisdom. It sounds like patience. It sounds like caution. But you must learn to test that voice, because sometimes wisdom and fear speak in almost the same tone, and only their fruit reveals which one you are actually listening to. Wisdom will tell you to prepare, and then it will release you to move. Fear will tell you to prepare, and then it will simply ask you to prepare again, and again, and again, forever, never releasing you into action. If the voice inside you has kept you preparing for years without ever letting you begin, that is not wisdom guiding you. That is fear disguised as caution, and you must learn to recognize the difference before it costs you your entire life. Let me tell you about the myth of the right moment. People are waiting for the stars to align, waiting for every circumstance to be favorable, waiting for the perfect combination of time, money, energy, and confidence to appear all at once before they begin. But I need to tell you something that will set you free tonight. The right moment is a myth. It does not exist. There has never been a person in history who started their dream with everything perfectly in place. Every single person who has ever accomplished something significant started in the middle of imperfect circumstances, with limited resources, with unanswered questions, with fear still present in their chest. They did not wait for fear to leave before they moved. They moved while fear was still present, and it was the act of moving that eventually made the fear grow smaller. Fear does not shrink because you thought about it long enough. Fear shrinks because you walked directly toward it and discovered it was smaller than your thinking had made it appear. I want to talk about the weight of responsibility that comes with a dream. When something is placed inside of you, whether it is a business idea, a ministry, a piece of art, an invention, a solution to a problem you have seen with your own eyes, that placement is not only a gift, it is also an assignment. It means somewhere, someone is waiting for what you carry. Somewhere, a family is waiting for the job your business will one day create. Somewhere, a broken heart is waiting for the words in the book you have not yet written. Somewhere, a struggling community is waiting for the solution only you, with your specific combination of experience and passion, can bring to life. When you sit and only think, you are not only withholding something from yourself, you are withholding something from every person who was meant to be touched by what you carry. Your obedience to start is not only for you, it is for everyone standing on the other side of your breakthrough, waiting for you to arrive. Consider the story of a river that begins as a small stream high in the mountains. That stream does not sit and think about whether it is big enough to reach the ocean. It does not calculate the distance and become discouraged by how far it must travel. It simply begins to move, following the path in front of it, one bend at a time, one obstacle at a time. It moves around rocks it did not plan for. It merges with other small streams it did not expect. And slowly, without any grand announcement, that small stream becomes a river, and that river eventually reaches the ocean. not because it saw the entire journey from the beginning, but because it refused to stop moving simply because the destination was far away. Your dream does not require you to see the entire journey before you begin. It only requires you to take the next bend, and then the next, and then the next, until one day you look back and realize how far the movement has carried you. I want to address the comparison trap one more time, because it is one of the most effective tools fear uses to keep people sitting in the chair. You look at someone else's beginning and you compare it to your own imagined ending. And of course, your beginning looks small and unimpressive next to their polished result. But you are not seeing their beginning. You are only seeing their current chapter after years of starting, failing, adjusting, and starting again. If you could see their actual beginning, you would see it look just as uncertain, just as fragile, just as unimpressive as the beginning you are afraid to start today. Stop comparing your first step to someone else's 100th step. Compare your first step only to where you are standing right now, which is nowhere, and understand that any step forward is already a victory over where you have been sitting. Let me tell you what happens in the body of a person who finally decides to start after years of sitting and thinking. There is a strange kind of relief that arrives almost immediately, even before any results appear. The mind, which had been carrying the weight of an unstarted dream for years, suddenly feels lighter because the burden of delay has finally been set down. You were not designed to carry an unstarted purpose forever. It was designed to be released. And the moment you begin releasing it, even imperfectly, even nervously, your entire spirit responds with relief because you are finally doing what you were created to do. Peace does not come from figuring everything out in advance. Peace comes from alignment between what you were made for and what you are actually doing. I want to talk about the people around you because your environment has more influence over your beginning than you might realize. If you surround yourself with people who are also sitting and thinking, who are also comfortable with excuses, who are also waiting for the right moment, you will find it very difficult to start because their stillness will feel normal to you, their delay will feel acceptable, their excuses will sound reasonable coming from familiar voices. But if you place yourself, even occasionally, near people who are moving, near people who have started, near people who are actively building something with their own two hands, you will begin to feel uncomfortable with your own stillness. That discomfort is not a punishment, it is a gift, because discomfort is often the very thing that finally pushes a person out of the chair and into motion. Choose your surroundings carefully, because you will eventually start acting like the people you spend the most time around, whether they are moving or whether they are sitting. I want to remind you tonight that starting does not require permission from anyone else. You do not need your family's full approval before you begin. You do not need everyone in the room to understand your vision before you take the first step. You do not need a guarantee of success before you are allowed to try. So many people are waiting for the applause to come first, waiting for someone else to tell them their idea is good enough, waiting for validation before they are willing to risk anything. But validation almost always comes after the work, not before it. People do not applaud potential, people applaud results, and results only exist after someone was brave enough to start without the applause, without the guarantee, without the full approval of the room. Let me speak plainly about excuses, because excuses are the most comfortable furniture in the chair of sitting and thinking. I do not have enough money. I do not have enough time. I do not have the right connections. I do not have the right education. I am too old. I am too young. My family will not understand. The timing is not right. I have heard every one of these excuses, and I want to tell you the truth about them. They are not lies exactly. They are often partially true, but they are not permanent, and they are not disqualifying. People with less money than you have built empires. People with less time than you have written books between shifts at work they could not afford to leave. People with no connections have built networks from nothing simply by starting to show up. Your excuse may be real, but it is not final. And the moment you stop treating it as final is the moment you finally become free to begin in spite of it. I want to talk about the value of an unfinished attempt compared to a perfect plan that never leaves the paper. An unfinished attempt, even one that fails, teaches you something a perfect plan never can. It teaches you what actually works and what does not. It teaches you who your real customers are, not who you imagined they would be. It teaches you which part of your skill needs to grow and which part is already strong. A perfect plan sitting in a notebook teaches you nothing, because reality does not respond to plans. Reality only responds to action. You can write the most brilliant business plan the world has ever seen, but until you open the doors, until you make the first sale, until you serve the first customer, that plan is only a story you are telling yourself, and stories do not pay bills, actions do. I want to speak to the person who has started before and failed and is now afraid to start again. I understand the pain of trying and watching it collapse. I understand the embarrassment of announcing a dream to everyone around you and then having to explain why it did not work. But hear me tonight. The fact that you tried once and failed does not disqualify you from trying again. It qualifies you. You now know things that a person who has never started does not know. You know what mistake to avoid. You know which assumption was wrong. You know which relationship needed to be different. Failure is not evidence that you are not capable. Failure is evidence that you were brave enough to test your capability in the real world instead of only in your mind. The only true failure is the failure to try again after falling, because falling is temporary, but refusing to rise is a decision that can become permanent if you let it. I want you to understand something about momentum that most people never realize until they experience it. Momentum is not something you wait for before you start. Momentum is something that is created by starting. You do not need to feel motivated first. You need to move first, and motivation will follow the movement. This is completely backwards from how most people think about it. They believe they must feel inspired before they can act. So they sit and wait for inspiration to visit them, and often it never comes, because inspiration is far more likely to visit a person who is already moving than a person who is sitting still waiting for a feeling to arrive. Pick up the tool, open the document, make the call, send the message. The feeling of motivation, more often than not, will catch up to you halfway through the work, not before it. I want to remind you that your story is not over, no matter how long you have been sitting. I do not know how many years you have spent thinking instead of doing. I do not know how many opportunities have passed you by while you were waiting for certainty that never came. But I want to tell you tonight, none of that time disqualifies you from beginning today. The years you spent sitting are not wasted if you finally choose to stand, because everything you thought about during those years, every idea you refined in your mind, every scenario you imagined, has actually prepared you for this moment if you are willing to finally use it. Your season of sitting can become the foundation of your season of building, but only if you allow today to be the day the sitting finally ends. So I say to you again, with everything within me, stop sitting. Stop merely thinking. The world does not need another brilliant thought locked away in your mind. The world needs your brilliant thought turned into visible, tangible, undeniable action. Get up out of that chair. Take the step you have been avoiding. Make the call you have been postponing. Write the first sentence of the book you have been carrying for years. Save the first dollar toward the vision that keeps you awake at night. Speak the first word of the apology, the confession, the request, the announcement you have been rehearsing silently for far too long. Whatever it is, however small it may feel, begin it today, because a small beginning today is worth more than a perfect plan that never leaves the chair. Your potential has waited long enough. Your purpose has waited long enough. The people who need what you carry have waited long enough. It is time to stop sitting, stop only thinking, and finally start working.